Okay, welcome everybody to the FUTURO-Plan, and here is another week to talk a little bit more in detail about the FUTURO-Plan, the opportunities that are arising with it. And I'm thinking very often when I look at this spreadsheet and I ask myself, how come that something so simple people don't seem to understand or make it more complicated than it is? And I usually start then in explaining this is the only thing, what it really matters to the FUTURO-Plan when it comes to the true formula, to the true thing that makes the whole change. It's only that page here. It's only that, actually, those little section here. That's all that matters. Or actually, 1 times 14 times 30. So, looking at this, if you have a dollar, or if you have a euro, or if you have a peso, it doesn't make a difference what value is in there. The interesting part of the FUTURO-Plan really is that you have over a minimum amount of a dollar or euro or peso, and you multiply it for 14 months, which symbolizes the GDP of every country divided by 14. So then you really have a total figure of 420. And when you take $420 to your bank account or to any place in the world, and you say, hey, bank director, I want to put $420 onto your bank for the next 30 years, and I don't want to withdraw this money for any reason, not even if I'm dying, or nobody has the rights to make this thing close. It's for the guarantee of my children, of my grandchildren, or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that if a bank manager knows that you put your money on for 30 years under their custody, which means that it stays with them under their control, under their record books of assets that they have, because this is how banks work. You put more money into their banks, the more value becomes the bank. You agree with me on that? Because I think that's how it is. Huh? So, I mean, 420 on a 4% interest. This is a 4% interest, an economical interest a year, which really is very reasonable when you understand how banks work. It could be much more. That's why I have higher figures there. But I only explained 4% on 30 years. So I mean, 4% of $420 brings us a total yearly interest of $16.80. Here is the figure. Now, if we know that we have a yearly interest of $16.80, and we know that we would only need to pay 14 times $1, we only spend per year $14. Then the whole system is already explained, because the interest that you generate out of $420 deposited on 30 years or guaranteed, whatever you want to call it, generates more interest per year than it would actually cost to pay that person 14 times $1. Plus, you actually have $2.80 left over, which means that's benefit, that is money that's coming into your pocket in real interest that the banks give you. And you know the banking system, you can go to the bank and you get 4%, 3%, and some of them they give you 2%, because you can withdraw your money anytime. But if you make fixed deposits with no way of withdrawal, with a real 30 years, you put your money in there, it's your money, it stays your money, but you can't withdraw it. That's the key. And that's really what government guarantees are. And here is just the example of 1 times 14 times 30. And when you look it up, this is $280 per year, what you earn, and the person is paid for 420. This is the total amount, is a total of $504. That means over 30 years, you $420 have generated enough money that you can pay those 14 times $1 over 30 years. You see, there's a total that needs to be paid out in 30 years. That's the end formula. That's the only money that the person, the beneficiary, gets. That means in the end, you have gotten $84 extra on your money, and after 30 years, you get your $420 back, because the time is over. Does that make sense to you? Because in the end, you've got 504 that you can pocket in after 30 years. Well, this is all it really is. Everything else is just a breakdown of figures to give people a better understanding what to do with those monies. Because that's really the whole thing. This is the formula. This is how much you get per month. A second month, a third month, every 6 months you have gotten $6. Per year you get 12, plus you get 2 extra payments. And that's what we say. We think that the year has, in any religion, at least 2 months where our festivities cost a lot of money, like Christmas or Eastern. Therefore, our fifth formula pays 2 extra months to the beneficiary or to the participants. Is that clear for all of you? Could you repeat this to others in simple terms? Because that's all you need to know. If you ever want to explain people, you will find, and believe me, I have been coming this across for the past 30 years, you will have loads of questions, but most questions are ridiculously silly because if you don't understand the simple mathematics, all your question that's not based upon this understanding becomes obsolete. It becomes null and void. And if we cannot bring across, and it seems to be too easy for people to analyze that this could change the world. And I mean it, obviously, honestly, and I totally believe that mathematics are basing our daily life. It's like you couldn't do anything today on a computer without mathematics. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't go to the distance from A to B without knowing mathematics. It tells you you're 60 miles down the road. What is 60 miles all about? You know, I mean, it's all about mathematics, our life, and most people seem to have an antipathy on mathematics because they haven't been good in school or it's too complicated. But I want to ask you a question. Is 1 times 14 times 30 really complicated? Danny, what did you think?
No, Michael, that's easy to understand for me.
Well,
that's very easy for me to understand.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think I didn't give any unrealistic figures, but I know that in many countries you get more than 4% a year on a fixed amount. But I know that most people wouldn't go and say, I want to put $420 on a bank for 30 years. But imagine you would. The results would still be the same. Now, let's go one step further here on this explanation, and I would like to give you some of the examples that actually is based upon the GDP of each country, which is the value of each person that lives in this country. Let's start quickly and go over to Australia. Australia is based upon the 2009 statistic of the World Bank, has a population. Let me just increase this a little bit more in size. Maybe it helps to see this all a little better here. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, this is better, I think. So you can see this is the GDP of Australia. We are now underneath here in the Australian part. I will color it just to show you where we are at the current stage. We are in Australia. Now, Australia has a value per GDP per person of $46,824,000. So, I mean, that's the value of each Australian citizen, including childs, elder people, everybody included. Now, if this is the value of each person per year, then instead of having 1 times 14, I take this figure and I divide it by 14 to get the one amount. And that actually sums up to $3,344. Are you following me what I've done here? Are you following me on that, what I've done here with this thing? Yes? Let's see if Jerry gets it as Bert. And do you understand that I have taken 46,824 divided by 14 to come to this figure? Okay. So we're actually talking about $3,344, which would be the monthly amount that we could give as an example here to one participant. Instead of having the value just that the governments spend money and lend money on our behalf, why not take that value, if it is our value, if we are valued per person into our country, wouldn't be a smart solution for our economy to adapt a system like the FUTURO-Plan and take this value and guarantee every newborn $3,344.55 in Australia for 14 months a year, because then we would come to that 46,824. Now, if we understand this, believe me, $3,344, much better figure for us to imagine, because now we can adjust it to our daily life, to our daily social spendings. And my system, what it really does, it takes a figure of 3,344, it actually divides them into two parts. This is the total income, which is the 100%, is the total valued guaranteed PIB of the country. This is the first important figure of the fifth formula, which is 1 times 14 times 13. Here we symbolizing the 1 figure, okay? Which is here the one, this is the one you see. So the allowance to the beneficiary or participant. Now then we have the security invest. This is an interesting portion to understand. Let me just open this up a little bit. Edit the command that you can see that better in the part here, okay? So this investment is 40% of the 100% of the 3,444. So this is symbolizing the investment and the security for the beneficiary. In this particular case, it is meant for the child that is just being born. So that means out of 3,344.57, 1,357 US dollars would need to be spent for their child from first months on by their parents, or by their mom, or by their father, whoever has the custodial rights over the child. Now, when you get this money, this is what you have to secure, and this is like, depositing in his life security. Now, this is the first part. And then I call the next section, I call it the private income. And the private income is freely the money that is distributed by the legal or the beneficiary participant for family use. The legal tutors are responsible until the beneficiary participated reaches 18 years. Now what that really means, out of that 3,344, you as a family person, you spend $2,006.74, right, calculated down to the last penny. You can calculate and spend that for your life. We give an orientation, the FUTURO-Plan gives an orientation further down the road what to do with those 7. I'm just highlighting this here for you. And now we do give a recommendation what to do best with it. But it's freely up to the parents if they want to blow it, if they want to spend it in travel or whatever. It's their choice. We don't have any control, but we certainly should give people the opportunity to give them a good understanding how to keep your home safe. And if you have one child and you get every month $602 just for having a child towards to your rent, towards purchase of your home, you've got $301 that you get for your family spendings, $200 that you can put aside for holidays, $301 for making your business work, 8% or $160 for leisure, and $120 for sports activity like going to the soccer or to the baseball match or whatever. And you still are as a good person that gets money for free, you spend about 6% on charities. You help others, like pay it forward to others that are not in that position, that maybe are not in the FUTURO-Plan, that maybe don't have children. So as the mass, 6%, it's $120 a month you spend on charity on good issues. Plus you got $200 left that you can use for whatever other things you want to do. Do you think that this is a good support to support and maintain a family with one child to really give them the understanding of a secured life? I would think so too. Yes, Jerry, I would think so too. Now, if we understand this, then let me go and show you what I mean. Security investment. This is how we create our society sense. And what I mean with a plan that makes sense is that 1,337, which is, as I explained, the 40% of the total of the 100% that you get per month, which is 14 times the amount that the value of the GDP of each country symbolizes is, so you can actually split this up. And we give as a good recommendation, we have set up those figures in form of a total of 1,337, 35% of the for insurances. Every month is 35% has to be allocated into insurances. Can be more, but not less allocated. Why these figures? Because those figures are important to our current economy system. Insurances need new and fresh customers to sustain themselves and have our private security markets grow and always be capitalized. With a system like this, it will stay capitalized. Insurances can pay their insurances. They don't have to fight for not paying it. They can actually make it because we are loads of people. Now, 10% of the money that you would get, and you see 10% is $133.78, is going into a bank account. So you deposit it in the name of your child. That means the child gets every month $133 on a bank account. Would you agree with me that many children would be happy if their parents put $133 on their bank account every single month, 14 times a year? Would you think this is great? And I tell you it is great, because when you look it up, it's $1,872.97 per year. And it's even better. Our calculation allows you to forecast what you do. Actually, in 30 years, you or the system has deposited $56,188,000 after 30 years into bank account in the name of the child. And we haven't even included interest and on interest and interest. You see, this is how the potential of something so simple suddenly becomes complex, where people get, oh my gosh, there's somebody that can show me the figures for 30 years in advance, up to the last cent. Now, if you also imagine that you have $133 that you need to spend into your health of your child, what could that mean? All those markets in the private sector that exist to provide health and support, better clothing, wooden clothing, whatever you can imagine. You have $133 available to actually spend that. And the most important part, I think, and this is where we have realized over the past 40 years, we're making studies about it, those countries that 25 years ago invested more money into education are today the leaders of our society. That just came out a few days ago. It's not my invention. Now imagine for yourself, you have a newborn child, you become parents, and you have to put $607 per month on a one child on their education. What could that all mean as benefit to your child? It could be a private teaching, it could be a special talented, it could be just or into private school when they start going into pre-classing. So in principle, you spend $8,428 in the first year of his life, already securing his education. Do you have any concern this child would become a terrorist, or that child would be lacking of the support of education? I think this is the key for success. I believe if we adjust our thinking patterns to simplicity, then everything you see here is just a consequence of that value of a person per year in Australia. Now, that value divided by 14 brings that total amount of 3,344. Now, I'm sure you understood what I mean. And I'm sure you understand how this thing is structured in principle now. Full amount, 100%, 40%, 60%. Here is shown the dividends, the division of the 40% for the security investment for your child. That 4 sections. I actually call it the Youth Security Investment Plan. 4 major market segments. Why do I call it market segments? You will agree with me that the insurance is a huge segment in our life, in our society. And I'm sure you will not disagree that banks are playing a very important game in our life. I'm sure you also will agree with me that when you can start from your birth to have invested or have been invested by your parents into your health, and that 45% until you're 30 gets invested in you to be education, that means you can have no problems. You can go studying for 30 years. Now, look at the amount of money that you bring forward if you really say study for until you're 30 years old. That means you have deposited into your education $252,849. That money might not even be disappeared. It might be in a scholar fund, it might be into a school investment thing, and a private schooling system, or in the national boarding school. All those things that at today's moment only is available for the rich now becomes available for everybody. It depends still on the smartness of their parents, how they want to use it. What they cannot do is they could not take that money and just spend it for themselves. If they would, they would lose the total payment for the rest of the child's life. So I'm pretty sure parents would not risk to get $3,344.57 every month for free by doing something silly. Would you agree with me? Because it would be traced, because we're living in 2010. The 21st century allows us to all this online with Blackberries, with cell phones, confirmations. Every month's payment to the insurance can be confirmed, to the banks can be confirmed, can be traced, can be tracked. All this is a minor things compared to the understanding how simple it really can be if we take that complexity of life, that complexity of a social system that can govern the entire planet if we adopt it, to something that really only depends on 1 times 14 times 30. Now, for your benefits, I want to show you the figures also for the United States. It's 46,440. So it is actually, as you can see, compared to Australia, it's actually a little bit higher than the Australians. That's the US. Now, the principle is the same, like we have in Australia. But let's go back to Australia since we have been starting here. Now, if we take 824 and that the government has to sign a promise says, I put $1,404,720 US dollars in the name of the child based upon our signature as country. So that means the child becomes a value from day one of $1,404,720. And the only thing that the bank has to do is exactly the same. Except that promissory note, like they have taken the note that we do, or the promise of a state is the best guarantee a bank can get in the whole planet, and take this promissory note and accept it for 30 years because they know the government cannot withdraw the funds. But the bank does not become the owner. The country stays the owner of the funds in the name as a guarantee, so that the child gets that amount every single month, and it can be financed and paid from the interest earned every year. Because 4% out of 1,404,720, that's actually 56,188,080 cents. But since we only need 46,824, what is the final results? The same as I just showed you on 1 times 14 times 30. For every dollar that you have, there's actually 260 left over. So you have $9,364 that a country gets, and that is the money now that they can touch, that they get as liquid assets out of a guarantee that they never had the money in the first place. Because all the governments do, they put a signature. That's why it says the FUTURO-Plan only takes a signature. Now, If you take that 9,364 that is actually being left over, and you put this all up into 30 years, what is the outcome? By the day of the birth of the child, and it will grow to 30 years, the government has made $280,944,000. Do you understand that? Because that are fixed values that are already set up by the moment when the child is born. You can actually set it up before it is born, so that parents are prepared and have the communication technology. But what it really means, the government is a great benefactor to the families, get the funds, but the government knows that for every newborn child, the richness of our country is enhancing over 30 years by $280,944,000. Now, as you know, when you know what you get, then it works the vice versa. Now, this money can be lent out and used for doing anything that the country was from day one, because that's a fixed amount that they will get back based upon their own guarantees that they have provided to the bank. And since they have confirmed that they cannot withdraw those funds, those interest allocation over 30 years becomes again like a fixed tangible value. That's something that you can really monitorize on. Now, not that you're just making $280,000 from the moment of the birth of the child, plus you can say, oh, we are a great country because we are spending $1.4 million on our child until they are 13. Now, look for yourself the benefits that can come out of it. See it for yourself and go and download the FUTURO-Plan. Have a little look into the insight to the whole thing, because all those countries have the same similarity. It is only one page, ladies and gentlemen, that can change our entire civilization, how we bank, how we think, how we protect, how we educate ourselves. And the good thing on this whole plan, ladies and gentlemen, is that nursing needs to be changed in the current monetary system. We don't need to change the banks. We don't need to change the insurances. We don't need to change the private sector. We don't need to change the school system. All that would happen is that we would finance and enhance over the months and years to come with the money that is allocated. We will see an enhancement of people make their choices. Not everybody wants to have their child in one of the same schools. So people say, for example, I've got $602, what to do? What shall I do best with it? And they go out and spend it. They make arrangements with the school system. And then it gets confirmed. So the whole system can stimulate slowly by the growth of the implementation. It's not that you have to bang one day, you have to have 500 million people getting paid. In principle, it would make no difference. But in logical and in de facto terms, banks couldn't handle the democracy, all the things that would need to be taken place to make it go one day in work everywhere. So it's a plan that is adaptable for every country's needs and for every country's region. And we have the US, as I showed you, with 47,000. We have the European Union with 36,812 euros. Here, this is Europe. Okay? So it's really not dollars. Then we have Germany, 44,000. And it's always the same, divided by 14, 3,190. Then here the amount is changed in euros, but I could change this very easy by just making this and put it here 0. And you would see it will show up all in same amounts, and I could just change it around into dollars if I wanted to. But if we want to keep the figures right, that would be in euros there, okay? So it is an easy way to stimulate something. But let me show you an example in Spain. Let me example what that will do for a whole country. And Spain has a GDP of 35,300 and what is it now? 35,331. It increases a little bit. Now, this is our calculated for one. So if I would type in here 14, you would see this thing comes back to the original 1 times 14 times 30. How this whole spreadsheet adapts itself within less than a second to just a number change? Do you realize that? Now let me go back to the original. And now let me give you a little blow my mind, so to say. Spain has 42 million inhabitants. 42, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Look at this. You're not seeing anything because the numbers are getting too big, right? Well, let's open them up a little bit. Let's open it up. And let's see. I have to make the review. Grid lines and headings. Okay. Take the grid lines off. Okay. Now, this is the total amount of the inhabitants of Spain. You see, when I open it up, it actually shows the true amounts. What I could do here is, because there is no need for having 2 digits after the comma, I could actually take them off. Okay, so we just have that. So if you want to know, if you're the president of Spain, how much money would I need to spend every to pay every Spanish citizen 3,300 and something? It's 105,000 millions, or in America you would say billions. In Europe we don't have billions. It is actually 1,000 millions. You're missing 3 zeros for those that are in the US and are not aware about it. We have 3 zeros more. This is 105,993 millions, or for the US, 105 billions, $993 million. That would be the total amount that you would need to spend per month on 42 million inhabitants. Or, and now we come in Europe, it would be 1,483,902 million euros, or 1,483,902 million euros or dollars. That would be the total amount. But those now are numbers that are out of our minds. Most people cannot handle that. But imagine that you realize those figures are dealt with every single day. But even on those large figures, ladies and gentlemen, even on those large figures, if you put them up here, and if you take those things down to zeros, and take all those zeros off because they may be confusing. Okay. On the 4%, the same thing would happen. 1 trillion US, you would need that to actually pay per year. And you would make $296,780,400,000 on interest that you make on earning every single year. That's the money that the government has left after implementing that deal. Now I tell you, money shortage will never be a problem. Banks can never blackmail us again that there is no money around. We are the money when we implement it. And now I ask you, do you think that the FUTURO-Plan is a true solution for world peace? For having stability and equality all around the world? Now, that you cannot give those same figures to anybody else in the world, I would say that makes absolutely sense. For this, I've put up a little scenario like many of the countries, and I started in Africa because they're the poorest countries in the world. So let's take something like Kenya. Kenya has a total value, believe it or not, of $1,550 per person per year. Remember, United States, 46,000. So each Kenyan is worth $110, not more. So instead of 3,000, it's 110. But this is more money than most of them get. because most of them in Kenya have less than $1 a day. Now, $1 a day makes $30 a month, if you get me. And that's the thing. Okay? Now let's change this into dollars as well, so that it makes you better understanding and don't confuse it with a euro. Okay? Now, we take those dollar amounts and then we change this here into dollars for the time being. Okay? Now, 1,550 is the total value, and if you get 110.71 in Kenya, you would be rich. And it would help you as much as it would help you in the United States or in Europe or anywhere else. But the system would still work the same. It would mean per year 1,550, and it would be per 30 years 46,000. See, those folks would get over 30 years what you would get per year. That's how poor those countries are still. So to say, poorer than yourself. Now, solidarity starts with the right plan. And solidarity doesn't mean if we go and donate money and then it's spent by our systems and it doesn't arrive. Solidarity stands with a concept that allows the individual person, the individual newborn in any country, to have the benefits of the same things. Because they don't have $19.93 available for education every month. $19, that would be 70% of their current monthly earnings. Can you imagine that they could spend this on their children? If they could, they wouldn't need to help and need help. So the system works the same, always down the road. Here the same thing on the 4%. We can go down this thing. And here is the same outcome, because now you realize the monetary value is always 1 times 30. 4% on 1,550 on a total of 46,000 put onto the guarantee for 30 years makes an interest of $1,860 per year. $310 would go back to the government, and all they had to do is sign a signature. Over 30 years, they would make $9,300. Now, this is where we come in, because I believe UBIEE is a big initiator, and we could become the strongest alliance of simplicity, harmony, because we have built and we have created a group that's not money orientated, that is orientated. Yes, we do make business, we do have to pay taxes, we have to apply to rules and regulations, but I can promise you, we are not here to make things out to be silly. We make things happen for the humanity. And that's what I'm proud about. That's why I'm proud to be participating with you, that you are listening to me, that we have the chance to introduce those things, and more important, that there is a great demand at the present for giving ourselves a solution. Because, ask yourself, do you see our governments making the right noises? Or if they're not giving away billions of dollars to the banks, and the banks have the money, and now they say, okay, thank you for the money, you rescued our asses, but now I don't give any more money to the people. They're doing exactly the opposite, and they got it for free. And all because we have been afraid, oh, our banking system could be rotten. We could no money in the ATM machine tomorrow. This plan, which can be introduced within 24 hours on the current system, within 24 hours. And believe me, 1 times 14 times 30 should not take longer than 24 hours to implement into a simple month. It shouldn't take weeks or months or 30 years like I had to wait for to fight for what I am presenting to you. Now, this is my plan. There's more attached to it. What would the churches say to a plan like this? What would religion say? What would the other communities that govern our part, our world, our industry? What would the banking industry say to something like it? Would they love it? Of course they would, because they're getting money for nothing. Even for a newborn that can't even sign their own bill, they're already making money on them. Because we don't need to change anything. The system, you still have Walmart, have the shopping centers. What would the industry say if everybody suddenly that has a newborn has money in their pocket guaranteed for 30 years? Would you be credit worthy? Would you be a credit-worthy person if you have that money available every month? Let's go back to Australia. Let's go back to the roots. Let's take a realistically figure on the family side. If you have $4,214 for your family to spend every year, or $126,000 over 30 years, which you know you get, do you become a credit high rating person? I would certainly think so. I would certainly think that you would have no problems whatsoever. But it is up to us to take our decision. It is up to us to look at how we want to take it. We want to be cheated. We want to have a financial crisis. We want to be complaining. We want to do all those damn things that we're doing. But when simplicity is presented, we don't do anything. We don't even invite our friends to come to the conferences. You see, 30 years is a lot of patience. But I have willing to wait for anybody anymore. I'm going out and making this happen. And if you're part of it, and if you have that UBIEE heart that unites us, then you have to feel proud about it and tell people about it, that you're not a talker. You have seen today with your own eyes that there is a true solution that we can prove monetary-wise, financially-wise, and it's so damn simple that even anybody could listen to it if they would just have the interest. And how to get the interest, that is our choice to do. That's our choice to actually make it happen. I don't know your friends. I don't know your family. I don't know how strongly you believe that this is really bad for you. If it doesn't bother you, then life is brilliant for you. You've got nothing to complain. Then, okay, fair enough. Then don't change it. But if you think things need to be, then this is up to us to make it happen. Because you're not standing with your ass in the open air and everybody can hit your butt. You've got something that is solid and that works, and you can download it, you can send it to people, and if anybody has any doubts about it, send them to me. Send them to me, the church, your group, your government, your minister, send them to me. Contact me. I show them what simplicity means. And this is tactics. What comes out of it is just a consequence. Now, I open up the mic for a few moments. It's 44 minutes, so we've got another 5 minutes for the meeting for tonight. And if anybody has any questions or plans or regards, then please feel free. It seems like I got you all silent, ne?
No. Jetzt sind ja mehrere Deutsche da, stelle ich mit Freuden fest, zwar etwas verspätet und zum Ende hin, wahrscheinlich sind die Uhrzeiten wieder durcheinander geraten. Nein, aber der Futuro-Plan als solches ist wirklich simpel und auch nachvollziehbar. Man darf sich halt nur nicht von den ganzen Zahlen irritieren lassen, denn es ist ja quasi nur die Formel 1 mal 14 mal 30. Und die Zahlen, die dabei rauskommen, sind ja real und nicht, wie es bei uns ist. Bei uns wird ja alles geschätzt. So, ich drücke das jetzt mal flapsig aus, Pi mal Daumen, dann passt's schon. Aber leider passt es nicht, wie wir ja immer mehr und immer öfter sehen. Der Futuro-Plan ist also wirklich so angelegt, dass man auch reale Werte hat, reale Summen. Was kostet das Ganze jedes Jahr? Was kostet das Ganze in 30 Jahren? Und ich denke mal, dass hier wirklich der Wert des Planes ist, dass wirklich jedes Land sehen kann, wie viel Geld müssen wir dafür haben, wie viel Geld kostet uns das Ganze, wie viel in Anführungsstrichen verdienen wir daran, nicht? Und so denke ich, dass man mit einer Unterschrift hier doch unheimlich viel bewirken kann, denn wie gesagt, es wird ja kein Kapital verbraucht. Das Kapital bleibt ja bestehen, es werden ja nur die Zinsen verbraucht. Und von daher muss ich sagen, ist es wirklich eine gute Sache. Hier verliert niemand etwas. Im Gegenteil, hier gewinnen alle, dass die Armen sich wirklich auch für ihre Kinder Schule, Erziehung, Versicherung etc. leisten können. Und von daher finde ich also die ganze Sache unheimlich wichtig. Das ist meine Meinung dazu.
Danke ich dir doch mal, Jutta. Thank you. Anybody else
Yes,
with a
Michael.
comment?
Yeah. I just it's so funny, by following your explanation, because I was wondering each time I was looking at the Excel sheet, and I was saying to myself, but where is that money coming out from the security invest and private income? I could not understand that, and suddenly now, as you just told, that's 40% for the security invest and 60% for the private income. Suddenly it's like, you put a coin in a, it dropped, and suddenly it's really clear.
Well, I'm glad it is. I'm glad it is because
Yeah.
that's how it should be. The money is just a consequence of the 40 and 60%.
Yeah, and all the other percentages are coming out of the security invest for the health, the education, and so forth. I do understand it totally now, and like you said,
Absolutely,
the 1, 2nd, 3rd, 6th, the 1 year, the 14 months, that period is very important to understand. So it sounds unclear now for me. I do understand it. Yeah, and also with the 4%.
Well, I've just
as
showed
well,
here a little example for Germany,
Mm-hmm.
See, I've just made
No,
the whole
it's
the figures calculate as quick as it would be one person,
yeah. No, it's very simple. I agree.
bigger, but the example, the formula doesn't change.
Yeah.
The formula always stays the same. If you have one, or in this case, if you have 1 or 44,000, it makes no difference.
Uh-huh.
I also have an explanation here for those that are, for example, finding benefactors that would say, okay, I've got $1 million. I would like to put my $1 million under my name to the benefit of some person. Say, for example, I would say, okay, I'm Dr. Michael. I put $1 million of UBIEE money into the system for 30 years onto a bank account. That means that million would be divided by 30 years. Out comes 33,330. And out of the 33,330, 2,381 would be the simple formula. Back to the roots. 1 times 14 times 30 is 1 million. You see what I mean? And that's if somebody puts money in to a bank account and says, okay, I've got money left, like Bill Gates. He could say, okay, I give one child so much money, $952 a month, and their parents $1,426, and the system does exactly the same. You see? It shows how much money is generated, etc., etc. So that's just still showing that it doesn't need to come from a signature. It could also come from real money, because the beauty of the system is you will never lose your money. It does not go and change the titleship. That means if Bill Gates wants to give $1 million of his money, what does he normally do? He goes out and he gives it away, right? And it's gone. And he never sees it again. Here, he doesn't need to do it. All he needs to do is says, I, Bill Gates, I will put $1 million into a bank. And it is for that and that person, whoever he decides. And for him, $1 million is nothing. He has just put up $100 billion up. Let me put you this thing right. This is what Bill Gates has just done. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is the money that he just spent. Pretty cool, huh? If that would be for one person, it would be $238,000 a month. Huh? So, I mean, this is the thing that we could go through on lengths and lengths and go through. The monetary side is really just a formula. It really isn't anything else. Oops, I just lost my microphone. That's how simple it is. That's what it is. To participate in certainly enough people. Certainly invite your friends to come for the next meetings. If you really care about a solution for our planet, then don't come alone. Invite your friends, urge them to come. This is something the world should listen to. Jerry, you have a question. Let me see if I see that. I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Hey, can you hear me,
Jerry, go ahead, please.
Doctor?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. This is more or less a question and a comment at the same time. The U.S. can, say, the governor of Florida sign and get this in just for the people in Florida? The
Yes, he
FUTURO
could.
Plan?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to get a hold of every governor in all the states of Florida. The main reason is because we've already got 5 states that's already bowed their back up to World Bank and not wanting to go along with what our president is doing. So I'm pretty sure that a lot
I can
more are
imagine.
going to be joining that. So I'm going to get in contact.
I can tell you, this is...
Go ahead.
Uh-huh. No, go
Well,
ahead. You talk. Sorry, I had to interrupt you.
Okay, that's all right. But I'm trying to get the email address of all the governors in all the 50 states of the U.S., and I'm going to send them the FUTURO-Plan, and along with a letter for them to check it out, and have it set on the United States, or can I set it on the state?
You can do that. You can have my total authority to do that, and it would work. It would work even in a small village.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what I'm working on, and I appreciate everybody that's on this call in their own country. They ought to have email address for all their governors or the important people that could possibly put this into FUTURO-Plan into action.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
So it's not just one individual. We got to work as a group to try to get it out there before the World Bank tries to stop us. Because once they see this, it's going to put them out of business. This is going to put the World Bank out of business.
No, I don't think so. It would still be needed. The bank system doesn't need to be changed at all. What it would do, it would make the banks to be more human. It will make the banks to be more appreciated what they get. But the banks couldn't be going out of business because they make the main benefits. Because, see, a bank today doesn't get so much funds without that they have to do anything. See, there is no risk for them involved that you take that money away. The only risk is involved if a person or a beneficiary person dies. Say, for example, you have children and you go to war with your country. And you send 5,000 body bags home. That means 5,000 of those agreements would be cancelled, and the banks then would lose out. So for people that actually are under that system, the young generation would certainly, the banks would only lose if we lose our children, if you follow me.
Yeah. Okay, well, I appreciate it,
in the end, it would also... See, this is why I call it a peace solution, because we would not send our assets to war if we already our own assets. Actually, what it also would do, it would stop immigration. Because if you suddenly see that in your own country you get the benefits, you get the support from your government, then you have no needs to go to the better country. Because with that system, the country by itself, by the birth of each child, and in Africa, there are many more children born per family than in our civilized world, as we call it. So they would quickly, within 5 to 10 years, to come to a level of economically power where we could supply them with goods, television, cars, all the industry that they don't have yet. So we would create a sustainable economy thanks to that, especially by concentrating on the much poorer countries, providing them such a plan. I think it's easier to implement in the poorer countries because people, they will really, really love you for the extra $1 a day, because we have 64 million families in the world living on less than $1 a day. That's tremendous.
Well, I thank you, Dr. Michael. That's all I got to say. A great meeting, by the
You're
way.
welcome, Jerry, and I appreciate. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thanks for the recognition. Okay, is there anybody else with a question? Gibt's da noch jemand mit einer Frage? Wir haben natürlich auch gerne einen Moment in Deutsch. Bert, Detlef, Herr Kessler, Manfred, Manuela. Heute war es mehr in Englisch, weil ihr ein bisschen spät dran wart, ne? Aber ich hoffe, ihr habt trotzdem viel mitbekommen von dem Ganzen, ne? Wenn keine weiteren Fragen sind, dann werde ich mich jetzt auch von euch verabschieden und wünsche euch noch ein schönes Wochenende. Nicht ohne mit dem Wunsch, bitte ladet eure Freunde ein. Nächsten Freitag, gleiche Zeit, 8 Uhr deutsche Zeit, haben wir den nächsten FUTURO-Plan-Meeting. Und würde mich natürlich sehr freuen, wenn da jede Woche ein paar mehr Leute kommen würden, denn ich glaube, es ist doch sehr, sehr wichtig. Wir haben eine Lösung, das mit der Welt so hinzubekommen, dass es jedem gut gehen kann. Es gibt genügend Geld, wir haben genügend Mittel, wir haben genügend Verstand, und wenn das alles mit einfachen Dingen gemacht werden kann, mit wirklich reellen Zahlen, dann gibt auch niemand, der uns aufhalten kann, außer unsere eigene Ignoranz. Und ich hoffe, dass ihr nicht zu den Leuten gehört, die ignorant sind und die einfach mit sich machen lassen, was jetzt passiert. Dagegen muss man was tun. Die Mittel sind da, Lösung ist vorhanden. Ich glaube, es gibt niemanden auf der Welt, der eine bessere Lösung für den gesamten Weltfinanz hat, die so einfach aufgebaut ist wie der FUTURO-Plan. In diesem Sinne wünsche ich euch einen wunderschönen Abend. Viele Grüße aus Spanien. Goodbye, everybody. My best regards from Spain. Please contact your friends. Make sure that we get every week a few more people to turn up and show up, because I think it is our importance, as Jerry said, we all should be working as a team. Don't be part of the ignorant. This is a solution that is true, and you have somebody that can explain it like me, and we can do it for any country, for village, for any region, for any state in the world. The system is simple formula, 1 times 14 times 30, for a world peace solution on a global scale. Bye-bye. Thanks for participating.
Ja, Michael, ich möchte mich bei dir auch noch mal ganz herzlich bedanken, da ich ja mit dem Englischen so einigermaßen hinkomme. Ich muss also sagen, ich verstehe es also auch von Mal zu Mal besser. Wie gesagt, man darf sich halt durch die Zahlen nicht verwirren lassen, denn geht ja nur um die Formel 1 mal 14 mal 30. Und von daher, es ist wirklich eine ganz, ganz tolle Sache, und ich finde es also auch schade, dass immer nur so wenige kommen. Also ich lade immer meine komplette Downline ein, aber ich kann leider niemanden an den Haaren herbeiziehen. Ich finde es also trotzdem schade, dass so wenige da sind, auch bei den anderen Meetings in letzter Zeit. Denn es sind doch alles wichtige Dinge, und auch das gehört zum Erfolg, dass ich anderen helfe, dass ich andere unterstütze. Auch das ist ein Teil des Erfolges. Erfolg ist nicht nur Geld einnehmen, Geld haben, Geld bekommen, sondern Hilfe ist auch Erfolg.
Darf ich dich da ganz kurz unterbrechen?
Ja?
Es liegt ja wahrscheinlich nicht daran, dass die Leute keine Lust haben, sondern dadurch, dass halt viele Leute auch viel mehr am Arbeiten als vorher, es ist nicht mehr so viel Freizeit da. Habe Verständnis und Geduld, denn ich habe dazu 30 Jahre Geduld gehabt. Die Zeit ist reif. Ihr seid da, und es liegt ja im Endeffekt nicht an denen, dass die anderen nicht kommen, sondern es liegt an euch, neue Leute zu finden, die mehr Interesse haben. Ne?
Ja, ist richtig. Ich denke mal, dass sich da das eine und das andere vermischt, aber wie gesagt, ist klar, dass viele Leute berufstätig sind.
Muss es doch, ist doch harmonisch. Muss es doch, muss doch vermischt sein. Es gibt ja im Moment die Leute müssen viel mehr tun und verdienen weniger Geld. Es gibt weniger Geld, obwohl eigentlich mehr Geld im Umlauf ist. Ne? Also von der Seite her, glaube ich, da kann man den schwarzen Peter zuschieben. Es ist einfach nur unsere Aufgabe, die Leute, die das verstanden haben, die auch den Sinn, die Einfachheit dahinter, es liegt also an uns und an keinen anderen. Und ansonsten, ja, es gab schon viele gute Projekte auf der Welt, die niemals gemacht wurden. Ne? Das muss man auch akzeptieren als Lösung. Ne? Zweifelsfalle, ne?
Nee, ist richtig. Nee, ich will da auch niemanden schwarzen Peter zuschieben, um Gottes Willen. Nicht, sondern wir müssen halt nur gucken, dass wir den Leuten und sagen, dass uns das sehr wichtig ist und ihnen das halt simpel und einfach erklären. Ich denke mal, dann wird der ein oder andere im Laufe der Zeit das auch verstehen und sagen, Mensch, das ist ja wirklich toll, das ist ja wirklich eine wichtige Sache, da möchte ich auch dabei sein.
Ja, genau. An uns, ne? Wir müssen halt mit unseren Dingen, mit unseren Möglichkeiten kämpfen, machen, tun, bis wir das hinbekommen. Und wenn es dann nicht richtig geht, dann müssen wir halt schauen, dass wir es besser machen, ne? Ich glaube, das ist der richtige Weg,
Hm?
ne? Okay, Jutta, ich danke
Richtig.
dir auf jeden Fall.
Okay.
Danke dabei zu sein. Thank you very